Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie. And in this video, I'm going to cover the astrology and the I Ching for the week starting on Monday, December the 4th, 2023. And this is a week that runs through until Sunday, December the 10th, 2023. So the way I'm going to structure this video is that I'm going to start with the astrology, and I'm going to look at the main events this week astrologically as I see it, and then I'm going to look at a couple of people who I think might be affected by it. We'll probably never know. I'm specifically focusing on the fact that Neptune goes stationary direct this week. So I'm going to be just looking at some people and a country that this stationary Neptune might impact. Having done that, I'm going to look at the I Ching. So I'm going to do a sort of general interpretation of the I Ching for the week. Then I'm going to look at the I Ching and money, the I Ching and career, and finally the I Ching and relationships. Okay, so let's start off with the astrology and what's going on this week. So what you're seeing here is the positions of the planets right at the beginning of a week, as the week starts at midnight, set for New York. Now, by the way, top right, that blue planet, that's Neptune, and I think Neptune could be quite important this week because Neptune does go stationary direct. So, as far as the week is concerned, the first big event is Venus going into Scorpio. So you can see that Venus it starts a week right at the end of Libra, at least sort of New York time. And so a bit later on Monday, Venus goes into Scorpio. This is a big change. And Venus goes into Scorpio, and it stays there until, it stays there until December the 29th. So it stays there for most of the month. So Venus has been in Libra for some time. Venus works very well in Libra because Venus rules Libra. It was a good time for sort of, relationships, but, relationships in a sort of non-emotional way. We could sort of get on well with people, but nothing was too heavy. And Venus does work well in Scorpio. Then Venus works well in Libra. Then Venus moves into Scorpio. Monday, December the 4th, Venus moves from Libra to Scorpio. So there is a dramatic change in Venus's status. It moves from being in its own sign to being in its detriment. This is because Venus is in its own sign in Taurus. There are two signs that Venus rules, Taurus and Libra. So the opposite sign to Taurus is Scorpio. So Venus doesn't work well in Scorpio. I think it's because, Venus, Venus is a planet of relationships. It likes to be open. It likes to relate to people. But in Scorpio, it's just too intense. It can be quite vindictive. It can be brooding. It can actually be quite cruel in an extreme situation. So the way we relate to people with Venus in Scorpio is going to become sort of more complicated, more emotional. It's going to be difficult to tell exactly how we should respond. It's a situation really where if things get too emotional, if people are brooding too much, then relationships aren't really going to work. So it's going to be really tough. I suppose on a positive note, Venus in Scorpio can be very passionate. So if it's the right relationship, if it's a relationship that's going really well, that's sort of got no real problems, then yes, there could be passion and emotional intensity, but it really does have to be the right relationship. I think in most cases, Venus in Scorpio can be a bit of a problem. So moving on to Tuesday, and Venus having moved into Scorpio, it makes a trine to Saturn, Saturn in Pisces. In general, this is a good aspect. Venus trine Saturn. It does provide some structure to the various relationships we're in. We're not going to do anything too stupid when it comes to other people. We're not going to sort of abandon common sense. We have to think. We'll be thinking. What is the purpose of this relationship? We're going to, in most cases, behave with a certain amount of discipline. Venus in Scorpio. Scorpio is a water sign, an emotional a sign that is quite emotional. Saturn is in Pisces. It's quite emotional. So maybe with Venus trine Saturn, we can sort of control our feelings and make sure that nothing untoward happens. But also, same day as Venus trine Saturn, there is the Sun is making a 45-degree aspect to Pluto. There you can see. You see, there's the Sun. So it moves on a bit and starts to make the 45-degree aspect to Pluto. Sun semi-square Pluto can be about power struggles. It can be about different people competing with each other to be in control. I mean, that's one way that Sun semi-square Pluto can work. So if we're someone who is really into power, then sort of around Tuesday, that would be December the 5th, we might really be trying our hardest to assert ourselves, but perhaps in quite a sort of subtle but emotional kind of way. But of course, some of us might be introverts, and we might not be so concerned with power. We might just find the whole situation just too heavy, and we just find it difficult to actually say anything. Then Wednesday, Neptune goes stationary direct. This is really important. This is probably the main event of the week. So I'll be coming back to that just in a couple of minutes. But before I talk about Neptune, I want to point out that also on Wednesday, Mercury is making a sesquiquadrate aspect to Uranus. So Mercury moves on to about 5 Capricorn, makes a sesquiquadrate aspect to Uranus. So on Wednesday, we might find that people are, maybe saying crazy stuff. Our own thoughts may be really moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and we'll have this sort of mental tension. Okay, Mercury is in Capricorn, so that does sort of quieten it down a bit. So, it may be about sort of tension regarding money, because Mercury, Mercury in Capricorn, that's an earth sign. So we might have this this tenseness on Wednesday about our financial prospects. We may want to sort things out quickly, and if we see that something is wrong financially, we just are not going to be able to help ourselves. We're just going to want to say something, but maybe that's not such a good idea. Maybe we should keep our mouth shut. Then on Friday, that would be Friday the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, Friday the 8th, we have got Mercury making a trine to Jupiter. This is really a very good aspect. Great time for communicating. We can really get our message across, particularly if it's a message relating to money. That's because Mercury is in an earth sign, Mercury in Capricorn, and Jupiter is also an earth sign, Jupiter in Taurus. So yeah, it's a great time for communicating successfully, and for having great ideas. But that aspect is taking place against the backdrop of Neptune going stationary direct. So Neptune goes stationary direct. So London time, it goes stationary direct at, I think, 1:20 in the afternoon on December the 6th, which is a Wednesday. So it actually goes direct at a precise time. This is the chart for that moment that Neptune goes direct. So Neptune is the planet of the sea. It's the planet of chaos. It's the planet connected with maybe disinformation and confusion. Sometimes connected with oil, actually, in terms of a mundane world. Oil is ruled by Neptune. Drugs are ruled by Neptune. And alcohol is ruled by Neptune. And disasters at sea can be ruled by Neptune. So it is a time. It can be a time of chaos. Neptune going stationary direct. Reason being is that from the Earth's point of view, Neptune is at a standstill. So it is strongly emphasized. Now, last year Neptune went direct pretty much the same time of year, December the 4th, 2022. I just looked around to see what was going on that day. There was a flash flood in Johannesburg in South Africa, near a church, I think, and 9 people were killed. So flash flood, Neptune, the sea, water. That makes sense. Remember, Neptune is the god of the sea. Then at the same time in Indonesia, there was a high alert regarding a volcano. So I suppose volcanoes, sort of lava, gases, all that kind of stuff, that might be a sort of a Neptunian event. Then going back, there's a rather nastier way in which Neptune can work. Going back to 1966, August the 1st, 1966, in Austin, Texas, there was a shooting. And that was a few hours after Neptune went direct. And it was a very big shooting. It was by a man called Whitman. And I think he climbed up into a tower, and he was an ex-Marine. And he shot 43 people, and he killed, I think 13 of them were killed. And apparently after he died, after he was killed by the police, it turned out that he had a brain tumor. But in a way, that is a Neptunian event. This man who is sort of confused, he's sick, and he does something incredibly dramatic. It's just, in a way, it's his disease that did it. Plus the fact he had the military training, and and so that could be a manifestation of how Neptune might work. I'm not saying it is going to work. So yeah, watch out this week for chaos. Just consider the possibility that things can go wrong. It's not a good week for sort of playing around with your plumbing. Okay, if you're a plumber and you know what you're doing, fine, but don't take risks with the plumbing in your house. Um, don't do crazy stuff on boats because Neptune rules the sea and things can go wrong. Yeah, doing crazy stuff on boats. Um, don't go swimming. Okay, in the northern hemisphere it's freezing and you're unlikely to go swimming, but in the southern hemisphere perhaps. So just be careful. With anything to do with water, alcohol. Just do you really need to drink? Particularly with Neptune going stationary direct. And it's not just Neptune going stationary direct anywhere, it's Neptune going stationary direct in Pisces, which is the sign of the sea. So that makes it kind of even more chaotic. Now, I do not subscribe to the view that Neptune rules Pisces, but because I believe in traditional rulership, so Jupiter is a traditional ruler of Pisces, nonetheless, Neptune certainly has an affinity with Pisces. Yeah, be careful. Anything to do with sea, anything to do, well, I'm sure you don't have anything to do with drugs, but just in case, do not have anything to do with drugs or alcohol with Neptune stationary direct. Bad things can happen. I mean, bad things can always happen with drugs and alcohol, but this week they're sort of even more likely to happen. And looking at this chart, looking at the horoscope for the moment Neptune goes direct on December the 6th, notice that the moon is opposition Neptune. So Neptune is at 24, goes stationary direct at 24:53 Pisces, and the moon is at 28 Virgo. So with a moon opposition Neptune, and I think the fact that you've got this moon opposition Neptune at the point where Neptune goes direct does suggest a lot of organizational chaos. There's poor Moon in Virgo trying to sort everything out, and then just Neptune comes along and just causes complete chaos. So if we're trying to organize things with this Neptune going direct, plan things, making sure the money's, making sure our finances are in good order, making sure we're perhaps thinking about Christmas now, getting prepared for that, getting our plans together. Things could just change, and the whole thing could just be washed away. So yeah, so do be really careful with this. Now, as far as people who might be affected by it, let's see. Imran Kahn. Now, Imran Kahn, he was the former Prime Minister of Pakistan. I haven't been following Pakistani politics, but he was Prime Minister, and he was engineered out of office. There is a view that he was one of the reasons he was engineered out of the office was because he was trying to be neutral in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Well, really a conflict between Russia and the US, and the US used its influence to force him out of office. Maybe with this Neptune going stationary direct, he does have to be a bit careful, because remember I said that Neptune goes stationary direct at 24:53 Pisces, and his Mars is at 25:09 Sagittarius. So Neptune is stationary direct, square his Mars. So I don't know if Imran Khan is planning anything over the next few weeks, but he does have to be careful. His plans to assert himself, to maybe find a way to increase his profile in Pakistani politics, may not work out, or he may be confused, or he may not have the right information at his disposal. So he is someone that does have to be careful. Another person is Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary. He is very skeptical about the war in Ukraine, and a lot of people in the West really can't stand him. He's seen as a sort of fairly authoritarian leader, even though Hungary is in the European Union. And you can see that he's got the moon in Virgo, moon at 24 Virgo. So Neptune, in his case, goes stationary direct, opposition his moon. Now, we do have a time of birth for him, so how might that work? If you're a politician, you've always got to watch the moon, because the moon is the people. A moon in Virgo is the ordinary working people. So with Neptune opposition that, there may be, he has to be careful about his profile. He might have to be careful about, with Neptune in the sixth house. Perhaps he has to watch out for what he eats, what he breathes in. I'm not suggesting anyone's going to try and poison him, but that's just something he's going to have to watch out for. And he does have to make sure that he deals with his public over the next few weeks in a really in a careful way, and he certainly mustn't leave things to chance. Someone else, continuing on the theme of this whole Ukraine-Russia mess, is Jens Stoltenberg. He is the Secretary General of NATO, and he has his sun at 2519 Pisces. So that means that Neptune is stationary opposition his sun. If you're Secretary General of NATO and you've got Neptune opposition your sun, you could get really confused. Perhaps he doesn't really know what's going on in Ukraine, or not as well as he should do, perhaps. He thinks he knows, but with Neptune opposition his sun, there might be some misunderstandings, and as he sees things unfold in Ukraine, I think things are starting to move quite quickly in Ukraine. It's quite clear that Ukraine's counteroffensive has come to a halt. And of course they are losing this war, but he's got Neptune opposition his sun. Yeah, he might not know how to respond. He might make mistakes. So that is a possibility. And the final chart I want to look at is Ukraine's chart. Ukraine has got its Mars at 25.5 Virgo. So in other words, Neptune is going stationary direct, opposition Mars. And it's interesting with Ukraine. If you look at Ukraine's coat of arms, I should have shown you his coat of arms. The coat of arms of Ukraine, it actually is a Neptune trident in the blue and yellow, those blue and yellow colours. And Ukraine has Neptune fairly close to the ascendant. If you take the Declaration of Independence at 5:31 p.m. as being the time to go for. So it's quite there is something a little Neptunian about Ukraine, and of course Zelensky has Neptune on his seventh house cusp. But this Neptune opposition Mars, if you are fighting a war and your country has Mars in Neptune opposition your Mars, that can be a problem. Mars is your armed forces. And Mars is a whole way you try to defend your country. Mars is would be the offensive, how you're trying to organize offensive and defensive actions. And having Neptune opposition Mars could be really problematic. And with that's Neptune going stationary opposition their Mars. So there's plenty of scope for making military mistakes and making plans that really have no hope of fruition, but are perhaps based on based on complete fantasy. I mean, that is a possibility. It's also Mars represents maybe male leaders, men in general. In Ukraine, Neptune opposition Mars. I mean, I think everything is undermined in Ukraine. I think with Neptune going stationing opposition at Mars. So those are a few charts where this stationary Neptune might have an impact. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to turn to the I Ching. What I did was I asked the question, what is the week starting on December the 4th going to be like for people watching this video? And as I always say, if you don't want to know about this week, if you don't want to be part of my forecast, you don't have to. You can just turn the video off, and what I say is going to have no impact on you. In a sense, you have to make the conscious decision to want to have a forecast for that forecast to have any chance of working. Okay, so. Anyway, I have my question. What's this week going to be like? People watching this video, and the first hexagram I got was hexagram 44, and hexagram 44 is coming to meet. It's about a situation where there are people out there, situations out there, which it's really easy for us to get involved in. People really want to get to know us. People want to worm their way into our confidence. And in general, this hexagram is a warning. About that, there are people and situations that we really should have nothing to do with, and there are a lot of moving lines in this hexagram. So this line moves here. The bottom line moves, and we have to make sure that we really distance ourselves from what the I Ching would say is inferior elements. There are people out there who we absolutely need to avoid, people and situations. And I think that may link with the fact that Neptune is going stationary direct. If Neptune's going stationary direct, then we're confused. We might not be able to see it. We might not be able to really understand people's true motives. So caution is required. There are going to be moments of indecision here. We're not quite sure how we're going to deal with this situation. There are people around us. There are situations. What do we do? And maybe it's not actually the right thing to do to completely break off contact with people, even if they don't mean well, even if they don't mean us well. Particularly, people who really, they don't know what they're doing, because we might need them later on. It might seem inconceivable that we might need them later on, but we need support from somewhere. And if we just tell people to go away, that's not quite the right thing to do. But in the end, when we've dealt with all this chaos, when we've tried to work out what to do with all these conflicting forces around us, a lot of us are going to just, in the end, make the decision this week that we just don't want to have anything to do with anything, and we just want to retreat from the world and its worries. And actually, that's not a problem. If that's what we want to do, maybe that's what we should do. And maybe that's what we should do right from the beginning. Many of us, if we just want to say, no, I'm not going to have a sociable week, I'm not going to allow new people, new situations to come into my life. I'm just going to retreat from the world. And then that leads into the second hexagram, what this moves to, and it moves to hexagram 60, which is limitation. And that's more retreat. It's more about discipline, and that's okay. We can lead a very disciplined life. But the I Ching warns us we shouldn't persist in limitation if it hurts. If it's a real pain having to limit our horizons, if it's a real pain having to be super disciplined, if it really hurts, then we don't really want to punish ourselves. But if we can handle it, if it feels natural, then discipline, limitation, that's the way to go. So that's a general picture, and then I wanted to look at this I Ching from three perspectives, which would be money, career, and relationships. So I think in terms of money, it's fairly simple what's going on with this coming to meet. I think that there are going to be a lot of people who are trying to get us to part with our money. Salespeople, people on the phone, people having tempting offers. It is Christmas coming up, so we're inclined to buy Christmas presents, all that kind of stuff, spend money on entertainment. There's all these reasons why we should spend money, and I think the people around us, our family, friends, are just going to be telling us that we should be spending money. This is a good thing to do, and it's going to be so easy. You can make people happy by spending money. So that's going to be that's going to be the temptation. Now, clearly, it's coming to meet. This is a difficult hexagram, and clearly, it's about a warning. And really, we should just say no. We should resist the temptation. Whatever people are saying, we don't have to spend the money. We might be accused of being mean, selfish, whatever, but it's not the right thing to do to splash out on money. And 44, it moves to limitation, and again, that's quite simple. We need to just limit our expenditure, but obviously not to the point where it hurts. I mean, sometimes you do have to spend money. I mean, you have to spend money on food. I mean, you don't want to starve. Sometimes you're going to have to spend money on, I don't know, petrol, gas, because you need to go to work, or you need to, you might literally have to spend money. So spend money, certainly spend money on the essentials. Don't limit expenditure to the point where you can't function and where you undermine your health. But if it feels okay, then limit your expenditure, and that's fine. So let's now move on to career and business. And 44 is about temptations. It's about people telling us to do things, and it seems easy. And we really have to, I think we have to stick to our guns when it comes to career and business. There may be some tempting opportunities coming. People claiming that they can help us in our career, and it seems really obvious, to us, because they're telling us it's obvious. But maybe we shouldn't trust them, or if you're trying to run a business, or you're trying to start a business, and there might be someone might offer this wonderful way to help your business work. 44 coming to meet, it just seems obvious, because they're so convincing. they come up with clear reasons why it should be okay to trust them. And of course, this is a week where people's claims to help us are unlikely to work out. Okay, they might work out, but the I Ching is suggesting sort of chances are no. I think also if you're at work and people talk about, socializing, I suppose people socialize at work, don't they? I mean, people go out after work, during work or whatever. I think that should be avoided. I think too much socializing at work this week is probably a bad idea because for some reason it's just not going to work out. I think if you're going to work, you go to work, and you don't go to work to have fun. You don't go to work to just idle socializing. There is a bit of a warning about that. For some reason, it just might go wrong. So that is something to consider. And this 44 coming to meet this hexagram, it does move to hexagram 60, limitation. In terms of career, business, we really do need to be structured. We need to have clear plans, and we shouldn't go into things with the aim of enjoying ourselves, or with the aim of having nice, easy contacts with other people. We should just remember why we're doing what we're doing. And yeah, it's okay. It's okay to be a bit isolated. Your main goal is not to make friends. It's just to sort everything out in an organized way. And I think self-discipline can go a long way. Finally, I want to look at the hexagram, the hexagram in terms of relationships. And fundamentally, a hexagram 44 is about relationships. It's about meeting someone who is just too easy. They come into our lives in such an easy way. Before you know it, they're living in our house. I mean, okay, certainly metaphorically, but they've completely installed themselves. It's just too easy. And I think there's a warning. This is particularly if you are you're single, at the beginning of a relationship. It's just too easy. And there's a danger here that the wrong person comes into your life. And if things are easy, if you meet someone for the first time and it's all very quick, then that's a warning. So be careful there. In terms of existing relationships, even then, things can be too easy, because another way of looking at this hexagram, the Greg Wincook book on the I Ching, he doesn't call this hexagram coming to meet. He calls it subjugation. And so the warning there is that in relationships, if you're in a relationship, there's a danger that your partner could quite literally subjugate you, uses their power, and you end up not being in control. So that's a warning if you're in an existing relationship. The power equation may well move against you. And so I think what you need to do is you need to have a bit of distance, however long-lasting, however close your relationship is, however well it seems to be going. This week, a bit of distance might actually be a good idea. And the final moving line is actually about retreat. So going into retreat this week, if you're in a relationship, however good the relationship is, however well it's going, I think distance is really going to be important. And then this 44 coming to meet, it does switch to hexagram 60, limitation. And I mean, so whatever the relationship is, relationships should not be central to your life this week. It's not just romantic relationships. Any form of relationship, it should not be central. Limitation, being a bit standoffish, not devoting all your time to one person, one relationship. It might feel tough, but it is the right thing to do, provided you don't go too far. Obviously, you don't want to be so standoffish you completely put the person off when they don't really deserve it. So yeah, I mean, don't go over the top on this. So to conclude, as far as relationships are concerned, I would have said this week relationships in general should be avoided, or at least not given primary emphasis, because there are other things going on in your life which you should perhaps be focusing on. Okay, so that is the I Ching. That's all I'm going to say about this week, and I will give you another forecast for the week after, which is the week starting on Monday, December the 11th. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I will talk to you again very soon.